Wraith by William Toney. Chapter 32. The battle intensifies. The chaos in the warehouse raged on as Jason, his powers fueled by Eris's influence, pressed his assault against Aaron and Lilah. The air seemed to shimmer with Jason's illusions, walls collapsing, knives flying, and shadowy figures emerging from the corners, each one a distraction or a deadly trap. Lilah stood her ground, her spirit spear materialized in her hand, while Aaron fought to protect her, weaving through the chaos with precision despite his injuries. Jason's voice echoed through the warehouse, a disembodied mockery. "You've been cleaning up this city, Wraith, but you're nothing compared to me now. I am the judge, jury, and executioner. This city will finally see justice." Aaron gritted his teeth, his body aching from the battle. "Justice? You're slaughtering people like animals. You're nothing but a puppet for Eris." Jason stepped forward, his form flickering as another illusion dissipated around him. His eyes gleamed with madness, the pendant on his chest pulsing with a faint golden light. "I'm doing what needs to be done, what you're too weak to finish." Aaron darted forward, his shadowy powers stretching across the floor to trap Jason's legs. But before he could land a blow, Jason's illusion shifted again, a flash of Lilah's voice calling for help. Aaron hesitated for a fraction of a second, and Jason used the moment to throw an invisible knife, its trajectory masked by an illusory barrage of flying debris. "Stay sharp!" Allistor's voice barked in Aaron's mind. "He's using every trick he has." Aaron dodged just in time, but the blade grazed his side, leaving a deep cut. He staggered, clutching his ribs as Jason laughed, the sound echoing unnaturally. Meanwhile, Lilah stood firm, focusing on Jason. "Elira," she whispered, her voice steady despite the chaos. "What do I do?" Elira's voice resonated in her mind. "He is Eris's creation, but the pendant is her anchor. If you can destroy it, you sever her hold." Lilah nodded, gripping her spear tighter. "Aaron, the pendant!" she yelled. Aaron glanced at Jason's chest, the glowing pendant hanging around his neck. He surged forward, summoning tendrils of shadow to try and rip the pendant away. But Jason was ready, throwing another wave of illusions to confuse him. This time the illusions were mixed with real civilians, innocent people Jason had manipulated with Eris's powers. They stumbled into the warehouse, their eyes glazed, acting as human shields around Jason. "You wouldn't hurt them, would you?" Jason sneered. "See how weak you really are?" Aaron hesitated, the shadows retreating slightly as he tried to calculate his next move without harming the innocents. Lilah, however, stepped forward, her spear glowing brightly. She hurled it toward Jason, aiming for the pendant. But one of Jason's puppets dove into the spear, blocking it. The impact caused the man to crash on the floor. He lied there, stunned and motionless, the spear dissipating into light before reforming in Lilah's hand. "Damn it!" Lilah cursed under her breath. "Clever trick," Jason said, grinning, "but not clever enough." The tension in the warehouse grew unbearable as Jason's powers pressed Aaron and Lilah further. Aaron was breathing heavily, his body protesting every movement, while Lilah's strength began to wane with each spear she summoned. Jason seemed unstoppable, the pendant's energy feeding him with every strike. "Freeze! Nobody move!" a voice rang out. Everyone froze for a split second as the sound echoed in the warehouse. The distraction gave Wright just the opening he needed. Out of nowhere, he lunged toward Jason, his eyes wild with desperation. Jason, caught off guard, stumbled as Wright snatched the pendant from his neck. "What are you doing?" Jason roared, his illusions faltering for the first time. "I'm taking back control!" Wright shouted, clutching the pendant like a lifeline. But Jason wasn't done. With a furious snarl, he threw a knife at Wright, the blade sinking into his side. Wright staggered, his grip on the pendant faltering as blood bloomed on his shirt. Marlowe, who had entered the warehouse moments earlier and had his gun drawn, fired reflexively at the sudden motion, the bullet striking Wright square in the chest. The pendant slipped from Wright's fingers, spinning through the air in slow motion. Both Jason and Aaron lunged for it, but Elira's voice screamed in Lilah's mind. "Now! Strike the pendant!" Lilah didn't hesitate. Summoning every ounce of strength she had left, she hurled her spirit spear with precision. The glowing weapon pierced the pendant mid-air, its impact releasing a brilliant burst of light. The pendant shattered into countless pieces, releasing a radiant shock wave that knocked everyone to the ground. Aaron, Lilah, Jason, and Marlowe lay sprawled across the floor as the light faded. When Aaron managed to push himself up, he saw Jason lying motionless, his body trembling. The once powerful glow in his eyes was gone. The pendant's destruction had stripped him of Eris's power. In the corner of the warehouse, Wright lay bleeding, gasping for breath. Marlowe crawled toward him, his expression a mix of horror and regret. Eris's form appeared briefly, her golden light flickering and fading. Her face twisted with rage as her physical form began to dissolve. "You fools!" she screamed. "You think this is over? I'll return, and when I do, you'll all pay." With one final shriek, Eris vanished, her anchor to the mortal world destroyed. The warehouse was silent except for Wright's labored breathing. Marlowe knelt beside him, trying to stem the bleeding, but it was clear the wounds were fatal. Jason, now powerless, lay on the ground, staring blankly at the ceiling. Aaron approached him, his steps heavy but purposeful. Jason looked up at him, his eyes filled with a mix of fury and despair. "You think you've won?" Jason whispered. "You're just like me." Aaron didn't respond, his gaze hard as he turned away. Lilah knelt beside Aaron, her hand on his shoulder. "It's over," she said softly. Aaron nodded, though his expression remained troubled. The battle was won, but the cost weighed heavily on them all. As the night's events settled into silence, the weight of what had transpired lingered, a reminder that the fight against darkness was far from over. Later that night, after everyone left, the warehouse was deathly silent. Allistor appeared looking down at the shattered pendant. "That's one down," he chuckled with a large sinister smile spread across his face. "Well, I guess be taking this." As he opened his hand, the pendant and all its shattered pieces began to float up into the air and began to land slowly into his palm. As the last piece landed, his fist formed tightly around them and he vanished.